Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of All the Way Down. I'm Dash. I'm here with InvictvsNox. How you doing, buddy?
I'm InvictvsNox. I'm doing.
You're just doing.
I'm just doing.
So my idea is last episode we spent a lot of time on our topic, right? We came in with a topic. This time I'm foregoing topics. I'm driving us right into what have you been playing lately?
What have I been playing lately? I have been playing, not retro stuff mostly. I have been playing a lot of retro-styled games, and I don't want to spin off into an argument about what can be retro-styled, but I would
we argued
argue,
about that for 3 hours a week ago.
I think this one does count as one, and I think you might agree too. Valheim.
Yeah. Valheim is what I've been playing a lot of as well lately also. So let's chat about what that is. Because at this point, I feel like I'm almost ready to just say I'm going to review the game because I've played it for 100 hours now. It's real good.
You've gotten a lot further than I am. I think I am at 112 hours or something, and you're 2 or something bosses further than I am.
Okay. It kind of makes sense because, I'm really into the progression of the game, you know? That's, I want to get to the bosses and fight them, you know? And because I'm a big, it's a video game, we gotta fight the bosses, you know? But other people might enjoy the game because they want to just farm and fish and cook and build a dope base. So for me, it's been really sweet because I've been playing it with my girlfriend, and I am really into the progress. I want to go mine the new stuff. I want to, get all the new materials, make all the new gear, upgrade it, go fight the boss, get to the next area. You know, that's my mission. Meanwhile, she is really into all of the other stuff. She wants to keep the farm going and make the mead and make the base bigger and make the base really sweet and organize all the stuff, you know.
She's me.
Yeah, so
she took my role.
So we make a good team, the two of us. But we should talk about what it is, just in case anyone doesn't already know what it is. So Valheim is a survival game, but it is one that is very focused on, to me at least, very focused on it's a video game. It's got good combat, interesting enemies, cool boss fights, cool areas, all that kind of stuff. When I think of a survival game, the ones that I've played in the past, I've never liked. And whenever I see someone play them, I never really think that they look very fun. But this one, really hooked me. And I think it's because initially of this real video gamey feel to it. All of the actions, just chopping the wood, just feels really satisfying, you know? All your actions have weight to them. You upgrade these skills. Everything is fun and satisfying to do. And that's not even getting into the combat, which is excellent.
Yeah, the combat honestly feels a little bit I guess I could go with the meme reviewer method of choice of saying it feels very Dark Souls-esque, and I feel especially qualified to say that because I have never played a Dark Souls game.
It's a little Soulsy, a little bit.
Once you get the dodge system down.
Yeah, so the things that's Soulsy about the combat is that it's weighty, it has weight to it. And it's stamina based. If you block something with your shield, it takes stamina. You can dodge roll, which takes stamina. Attacking takes stamina. So there's stamina management. There's dodge rolls with iframes. There's parrying. All that good stuff. The stuff that doesn't feel Soulsy, I guess, I don't know. It doesn't feel exactly like it, but it is pretty similar. Maybe that's why I like it so much. So when I bring up parrying, though, so that's the thing that totally changed combat for me. Because all of the other stuff in the game feels really good, the building and the wood cutting and sailing and just all the different things that you can do in the game are all really fun. The combat, though, man, when I found out, like, it's hard for me to stay on one topic here because I really like this game and there's a lot to talk about with it. One thing that I really, really enjoy in games in general is when they make you use all the mechanics. And a game usually does that by being kind of difficult, you know? When a game is too easy, it can have all the mechanics in the world, but you never have to engage with any of them because you can just mash the attack button and everything dies and you win. You know what I mean? So when a game is difficult, it forces you to use more mechanics in order to strategize and prepare yourself and all that. So at the start of the game, it was easy enough where I was just axing everything. I didn't even have a weapon, you know? I just used the same axe that I was woodcutting with to just smash through everything, and it was fine, you know? But then you get to that first boss, and oh shit, now we kind of need to use bows and arrows. We need range because it's too hard to do it otherwise. Then got a little further in the game, and eventually it wasn't working to just wail on everything. So with the axe, so I made a two-handed sword, and then I'm learning to dodge roll, or not sword, the glaive, the
pipe gear.
Yeah, whatever the hell that is.
I love that thing.
I made one of those, so then I'm two-handing and dodge rolling around like it's Dark Souls, right? And that was fun for a bit, but then that wasn't really cutting it. At one point, I got to a part where, like, if the enemies hit me, they'd just, like, almost one-shot me. So I was like, oh, shit, we need to make shields, you know? So then we make shields, and now I'm getting into, like, parrying and counterattacking.
This is a spoiler for me.
It totally changed the game. I mean, you can make a shield right now in the game, right?
Well, yeah, but I didn't really... So... We should preface this by, I was hanging out in Dash's chat just a little bit before we started recording this podcast while he was still playing a game. And we were talking about, God damn it, I'm king of loss of thought here. But we were talking about essentially the mechanic being spoiled last time in our last episode when we were talking about spoilers and whether or not a mechanic can be a thing as that gets spoiled for you. And so what you were just talking about was the logical progression of learning things. And actually, here's the train of thought again. It came back. You informed me that each boss is kind of the master of its biome, I guess, is kind of how they designed it. And I had no connection to the fact that the second boss, the Elder, is in the swamp. And now that you're expanding upon how you kind of just learn that you need things, like you're spot on here, because the game does a great job of putting things in your peripheral view before you even know that you need them. And it's like the game works off a way of like, I don't even know that I can craft something until something like that hits my inventory, and then it just throws a bunch of recipes in for your crafting, and then you're like, oh, I guess I can make those now. I guess I'm gonna need that for later on. You're spot on there.
Yeah, and what you're saying about things being in your peripheral before you know that you need them, that's kind of exactly what I'm talking about too. Like when the concept of like farming first comes to you, I kind of just thought, that sounds like a pain in the ass. And so I didn't do it, you know? But then later, like, you kind of find out, though, if you do get some carrots and some of the other things that you can farm, and then you can start making stews out of it, it's like, the stews are super good, you know? And then it's like, now I feel like I do actually need to do that because I'm in a part of the game where I have to have that much HP. Or the way better example is mead.
I'm learning so much. I'm sorry.
When I first learned about mead, right, because you can you can use honey to make mead, and then you have to ferment it for a couple days, and then you get mead out of it. And at first I was just like, you gotta like ferment it and shit, and then you only get a couple, what a pain in the, I don't care, right? But now it turns out though that like that's how you get the game's equivalent of a health potion. When I fought the Elder, what happened was he immediately bonked me for 95% of my health. And then I spent the entire fight just like running around a half a mile away from him, Not well, I had already eaten. I'm just waiting for the slow ass health regeneration
Yeah.
to get me enough health back. Meanwhile, Nicole is just fucking having the time of her life fighting him, and I'm just like hanging back, wanting to fight him, and it was kind of frustrating.
Were you not able to shoot him with a bow the whole time?
Kinda, but every time that he shot his big like vines out at me, I had to panic because if like one shot would kill me.
And also there's the added panic on top of the game does a great job of making you make split decisions of choosing between enough stamina to run and not have them close distance on you before you die, or can I get one good crit arrow shot with this stamina and make it not a problem?
Yeah, exactly. Like I could have been shooting him, but then I couldn't sprint away from his attacks and that kind of thing. So like it was kind of frustrating, and then later I'm realizing that the only reason that happened to me is because I had ignored the mechanic of getting mead, which is like a proper health potion in the game, And if I had that, everything would have been great. So after that, I started making health potions, and then by the time we got to the third boss, we were prepared. We had everything all the way upgraded. We had our health potions. We had poison resistance potions because it's in the swamp, a ton of arrows, right? And so it was then the third boss with all that preparation felt more like a good old fashioned raid boss,
Okay.
Where like he comes out, he's big, it's a 20-minute fight, we're in gamer mode, just like
hang on. Sorry, spoilers.
Oh no. I'm not saying anything specific. I'm just saying we had to be in super gamer mode of just like he's doing this attack, like right when he does this attack, you got to call it out to your allies, and oh shit, and then everyone reacts to it, and it's like very much about player communication to keep people from getting killed and all that. I'll just say, like, the fight went, and this was partly our fault for something else, but the fight went long enough that at one point we had to go back to our house one at a time to get our rested bonuses back. So, yeah, so that's been the thing about this game. Honestly, like, Omega Weapon in chat said it as a joke, but saying that it's the Dark Souls of Minecraft is like almost apt. Because it really does, it really feels like it's like it's a survival game where you start out with nothing, you pick up some branches and rocks to make some shitty equipment, and then you use that though to get better materials to make better equipment, use that to get better materials to make better equipment. But during this time though, the combat is super fun, borderline Soulsy, like it's super fun, satisfying combat. There's bosses that you fight. And the main progression is that, like, at first you're just in the meadows, it's nice, grassy, friendly, and once you fight the boss there, though, then, like, you get the tool that kind of unlocks a new mechanic that's in the next biome over. You get the tool that can do a certain thing, and the thing that it does happens in the forest, right? Oh, now we're going to the forest, Then you fight that boss. You unlock the thing that interacts with something over in this other area. Now we go over to the other area, and every area is super, super visually distinct, super gameplay distinct, different enemies, different soundtrack, different look and feel to the area. And they even do things like, you have to do mining, or just like generally, like you have to get ore to make metal to make your stuff at some point. And you get different types of ores for different types of metal for better and better equipment. But they even like change up the way that you get the ore in each biome, in like really interesting ways and stuff. So for me, it's got that progression that I love. Area boss. I love that. And so, yeah, it's the first time that I've like been into a survival game, and I really, really like it.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Was you mentioned like the progression of it, and I realized, just trying to zoom out mentally here, that ever since we started talking about this game tonight, everything we've mentioned has pretty much just been very rudimentary sounding video game elements. So it's like, I'm not trying to use this for the retro point. I'm just trying to say it's the fact that we're describing essentially the playbook, textbook, written down idea of what a video game is, and we're having this much fun with it, should speak volumes about how well it puts it all together.
Yeah, totally. And I do agree with you. Like if you are a guy who likes retro games, and like if you had any kind of like personal resonance with the way that I was describing how, like, I think retro is put the game in and play it, and it's about going through a game and fighting a boss and you had fun, right? If you are into that, then, you know, this is a game that you might enjoy.
Yeah, can we go back to what you were saying a minute ago? You were talking about how it's kind of Souls-like and how it has, like, iframes. I'm struggling to kind of understand the concept of frames in general. And in a fighting game context, it means something totally different, I'm pretty sure. But iframes, what is that like in Valheim specifically? How are you looking at that?
Like, so when you dodge roll, when you perform a roll, there are, like, let's say that the animation is 60 frames long. The iframes would say, like, maybe from frame 10 to frame 40, during that window of the animation, your character is literally invincible.
Okay. Oh, so that's where the I comes from.
Yeah, invulnerability frames.
I think I feel like I've been told this before, but my memory is terrible. But that makes sense, yeah.
I take a slight bit of umbrage in, like, for the record, when people see that a game has a dodge roll in it and that it has iframes, they immediately think Dark Souls. I've always been more of a Monster Hunter. Like, I've always thought of that as a Monster Hunter thing. But at this point, a lot more people have played Dark Souls than people have played Monster Hunter, probably. So I guess
I've played neither, so it actually is a new concept to me.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a thing from before Monster Hunter, even. But
and Monster Hunter is not anywhere near as young a series as I thought it was.
Yeah, the first one was on PS2.
Was it? Okay, I was thinking like PS1, but yeah, I remember it's been a while since I looked at it, but I remember it being. I thought it was a relatively new thing because only recently have people really begun talking about it around me. I haven't really tried it, but I guess do you mind if I ask you a little bit more about your idea of what makes a game super fun, or, like, you know, makes you super attentive to it? This was something I wrote down, actually, from when I was watching you and Flex playing Donkey Kong Country 2. You mentioned the level that you were in. I guess you guys were in a little bit later of a level. This is not Valheim related, but kind of in relation to just, you know, how you enjoy the mechanics. But you mentioned how, like, the level you were in had a certain combination of mechanics, and that made it really fun.
Yeah.
And I sat to myself thinking, I'm trying to think of a moment when I'm playing games where using the combination of certain mechanics is what kind of just, not necessarily what makes it fun, but like that it's put together in a fun way. And I think Valheim meets that, but like this spun off a second thought, which if you want to, you can address as question B. But have you noticed that no video game that gets advertised anymore, at least not that I've seen, involves shooting the person playing it just at like a TV, flipping the fuck out with a controller, just like smiling and doing all of that. That obviously that's like not as good looking for. It's not up to like TV advertising like standards of what it can be considered a good ad anymore. But at the same time, like, it made me think. The reason that kid's going nuts is because the game's supposedly going nuts. So it's like he's going nuts because there's a lot of shit happening at once. And I was just thinking about it. We're going nuts looking at this kid going nuts, supposedly, because that's the idea of the ad. And I don't think we piece that connection together anymore. Like, even if we look at games like Hades, which are high action, like you're not going to see advertising like that.
Yeah. Indulge me for a second, because I think that this is a really interesting topic.
Sure.
That in the 90s, that's what ads were like. The ads were showing the kids playing the game, and they're going nuts, you know. The game is blasting their hair back on their head, and, you know, like, and the kids are excitedly talking to each other about it and stuff. And yeah, like that's what a lot of ads were. Then I remember like the Wii taking it a little too far with the motion controls. Because the Wii was like, the Wii ads were like, let's show the guy fucking diving behind his couch to hide behind the enemies and then popping out and using the couch as cover to shoot with his Wii remote. And none of that's in the game, you know?
That's awesome, though.
But like, it's so ridiculous and too far, you know? And
yeah,
I feel
it's
like...
kind of like... It's you know what I bet I know where that shit came from. You know how like every toy that you'd beg your parents for to buy you at Christmas in the 90s, every toy was no fucking where as cool as the commercial made it seem. And it's because the commercial, they set up these elaborate, like almost like what people who play Warhammer 40k tabletop do now. They just set up elaborate scenes and tables and just high action, like has this thing come in from fishing line and boom, high action like video editing with it with fucking speed metal just playing in the background.
Yeah, it's stuff that these children would need an adult directing them in order to like think of these setups.
Oh yeah,
you know?
absolutely. And telling them to act that way in front of a video game.
Right. So later though, then one thing I particularly noticed about when the Switch was first getting revealed was that when they showed people playing the Switch, like as the you know, they just had like the little video montage of people playing Switch. It was just a dude with a straight face, just zoned in, playing Breath of the Wild, you know? And there was,
yeah, on the bus, right?
there were like several shots, right? I'm thinking, I mean, but it was true throughout, where it's like that's more what playing a game is like. The guy, he's attentive.
Yeah.
He's got a straight face because he's not thinking about what his face is doing, really, you know.
Yeah.
And he's just exploring Breath of the Wild, you know. And I was like, that's more what it's like. And it was really interesting to see that being actually how it was being advertised because of how I'm used to the ads being growing up.
Exactly. And like, oh god, so that I can really really identify in the way that Pokemon advertising has changed. Like the initial catchphrase was "gotta catch 'em all." That is such a 90s crack cocaine marketing slogan.
Right, yep.
You literally can't think of anything more buy our shit than that. And it worked so well. So like they had like a Poke rap, they had like the Pokemon like intro was just insanely colorful and like, you know, like something you'd sing along to as a kid. They made it so like it overstimulates kids. That was the entire like I guess that's where they discovered where like one era in advertising is where they discovered how fucking hype kids get because their capacity for can take this is really small. So if something is good and it exceeds that capacity, they're fucking nuts about it. So like if you can it's probably easy as shit to hype a kid up about Pokemon, so like they just make a sick advertising about it, and I'm not remembering the games being advertised, but just the IP specifically. But then I think about now when I think about like the DS games and the recent Pokemon Snap game, I think those advertisements, they're a lot more scaled, but they're so chill, and they're just meant to be like, they're kind of meant to evoke like a relaxing atmosphere. Whereas like that's kind of like the one weird vibe I had with that trailer. Not to get into too deep a hole, but just the tone of advertising has gotten real toned down, and I don't know that my desensitized brain is ready for it.
Yeah, I almost wonder like who it's being advertised for, because you would imagine that Pokemon would still be advertised to kids, you know, today's kids get today's Pokemon, and that would still be the target audience, but those chill ads kind of sounds more like it's an ad for me, who I grew up being the kid who was advertised to with those crazy ads. Now I'm a little older. Now I do think of Pokemon as like a comforting, chill, just relax and catch some Pokemon, dude.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like, so it seems like the ads are for me if they're more toned down.
Yeah,
now. Like they're just
and I think
still they're still trying to sell me Pokemon.
That's exactly what's going on if you think about it. Because I mean, like, why do they keep IPs alive so people will follow them? They're not going to just keep rinsing their hands of a new audience every generation. You know, it makes sense that they want to market to everyone and still keep it kid friendly. I feel like the whole industry at this point knows that, like, millennials never stopped being gamers. And the portion of, like, the pool of people that play video games now is so much bigger at a societal level. Like, the Wii alone is probably responsible for introducing not even just kids, but like 80-year-olds to video games, because there's so many games that, like, people's grandmas would play. It was fascinating. But I guess I don't want to stray off on that topic if you want to get to a game you've been playing lately.
Yeah, I think we talked enough about Valheim. Yeah, that's kind of what we've both been super nerding out on that one. And
I think the only thing left I was going to say about Valheim was my reason for considering it retro is just that it's kind of not retro, but like retro styled, is that to the layman, to the uninitiated, and I mean people who, like, I'm talking about the people who don't give a fuck about stretching a 4x3 image to 16:9 and playing and having a great time. Those people could be shown Valheim, and I think if they didn't ever hear the word Valheim ever, they would probably mistake it for an older game at first. Like, it looks very early 2000s survival. Yeah. I guess survival.
Like, graphically, yeah, I would compare it a little bit, not in style necessarily, but like as far as like the texture sizes and polys and stuff, it kind of has a little bit of a World of Warcraft look to it, I would say.
If World of Warcraft were capable of tessellation on the environment, yeah.
Right. Now, I'm glad you did bring up graphics, though, because we didn't talk about how the game looks yet.
Yeah.
So basically how it looks is it's got the kind of World of Warcraft level of textures and models and stuff, but the, like, technology and the effects on it are gorgeous. The way that, like, when it storms, the whole place gets misty and all the trees are blowing in the wind and, like, and their leaves are rustling, and, you know, everything's going in the direction of the actual wind. And
sorry to laugh. I'm just remembering that what you just mentioned gets weird, though, because, like, if you do like I do and only play it in a multiplayer fashion, which I'm guessing most people do, my friend and I built a wolf trapping camp near the mountains, like at the border, in the forest, and he was over in the camp helping me build up the tower because I made like an elaborate thing to just defend it, and he walks up to the mountains with me because I was like, dude, I want to show you. This is how you trap them. You aggro them, you pull them back down here, and then you remove the floor and they fall. But, like, he didn't go as far into the mountains as I did. I aggroed him immediately, and he started running back. I was like, run, dude, run. Don't one-shot you. Get out of here. And he runs, and, like, I start getting the freezing debuff, which, if you don't know, if you're in the mountains without a certain cape, I think it's a Lox cape, you get a debuff called freezing. And that's worse than the debuff called cold, which is where your stamina doesn't recover, but so fast. Freezing actively doesn't recover your stamina, and it hurts you. You will die. And what you just mentioned with the weather effects, it's kind of a proximity thing, because as soon as I got the freezing debuff, the snow starts following me and growing down the mountainside as I'm walking, and, like, the air gets thicker and it gets really foggy and hard to see, like you're in a blizzard. And my buddy James is over here to the right, like, dude, I'm fine. There's no snow here. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Snow specifically, I've noticed that with or in general, when you change biomes, you kind of get that. And I think we've all seen that in games a little bit, where like in Dark Souls, there's this tunnel that goes into Blighttown from the back. And the moment that your character steps over the logical seam between the one area and the other area, the new like color coding comes in, however you want to say it, like the filter or the color correction to set the atmosphere of that place, right? The moment you step over that seam, the whole sky changes colors, right? And it just darkens, and it's like, oh, okay, and then you step back and it reverts.
It's kind of like the Oblivion effect, I guess you could term it, if you draw it back to the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. When you'd walk near to a portal to Oblivion, the area around you starts like burning.
Yeah.
The grass becomes like singed and dead. All the trees start like looking like they've been burnt. That's just near Kvatch where they programmed to look that way, but like the skybox will change to like, it'll go from a nice blue Milky Way to just red and ashen clouds, and there's lightning, and you just hear earthquakes going on in the distance, and like everything just looks hellish just standing near the portal, not even looking through it. It's just literally the whole world around you just became that.
Right. So yeah, like we've all kind of seen games that do that, where when you change areas, it changes the whole effect of the world around you, and it's kind of silly when it's really obvious. Valheim definitely does that, especially with like the mountain snow, or there's another biome that shall not be named, but for spoilers' sakes, but I've had to like when I'm sailing around trying to find a certain area, I can't get too close to the shore, because if it's this certain biome and I'm too close to the shore, so the game considers me to be in it, suddenly it's just instantly way too dark to see anything.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
You know, and I gotta go a little bit back into the ocean. On that note, too, when you look from afar into one of those biomes, when you're not in the right setting for the lighting, it looks really goofy, kind of, you know? Like looking in on the swamp or this other unnamed
It's just
biome.
like this weird, this weird, nice, beautiful, like, scenery, and then just in one patch, there's just, like, abnormally tall, abnormally barren, dark wood trees that
but like it's still bright there, you know.
It's bright
but
as
then
fuck.
once you actually walk in, it darkens. I was getting the same effect. I was just watching. I haven't watched very much of this. Not to bring up Dark Souls about every single thing, but I was watching someone play a Dark Souls randomizer, and I know that those are super old news, but like I've never really watched them before. I was just watching someone play one, and the thing that stands out the most to me is that effect of like seeing something in the wrong lighting, where when you see something from like Blighttown, the place that's all like really darkly color coded, right? When that enemy gets randomly put into a bright sunny place, it looks fucking weird, you know? And it looks kind of scary. You don't recognize it at first, you know?
Like Death Claws in Fallout, yeah.
Yeah, like you kind of see them in like this different like lit up lighting, and because you're not used to seeing them in that color, you don't even recognize it at first, and it's like really weird and creepy looking for a second, and then you realize, oh, it's just that thing that I've seen before. So that's just an interesting effect of that. But anyway, okay, so not talking about the goofiness of Valheim's graphics with the biome changes, the actual tech of the game is gorgeous. So like, it's got the World of Warcrafty kind of textures and polys, but like when I'm talking about the rain, you know, it gets foggy all over the place, right? And then the lightning strikes, and like you can see the lightning lighting up the fog with all the trees going. It looks gorgeous. Or then like you go out sailing, you know,
or fishing,
and it starts raining on the ocean, maybe, or even when it's not raining, and you're on these big waves,
I
you
love
know,
the waves.
like God, it looks so good. So like
and
it's
terrifying.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, the first time I was sailing out on just a raft, you know, and like I'm on these huge waves, and when I come back down, the raft is like getting damaged and shit, and it was like terrifying, because like I'm gonna lose all my stuff if I die here. I don't know what happens if you die in the middle of the ocean, you know. So yeah,
I unfortunately do.
It was just a wonderful like atmospheric experience. But my point though is that it's really neat the way that the game is the game is only about a gig on your hard drive, and that's because it's got these small these low poly models and these small textures that are pixely, you know? So it doesn't take up very much space on your drive, but you play it, and because of like the technology behind it, it looks really gorgeous. And I like that. I have big appreciation for that.
Yeah, I think it was only like 700 megabytes when I downloaded it. It's fascinatingly. I mean, okay, so the game works off procedural generation, which I guess allows it to have a very small initial file size. So
yeah, it's worth noting, that once you like explore a lot, if your world is locally on your computer, like you're not renting a server or something, then that world does get up to be about another. Our world, I think, is like 45 megs right now. Something
not
like
bad.
that.
So yours is probably bigger than mine too. So
yeah, it's still not too bad.
The only thing I don't like about it when it comes to those polygons is how bad it'll slow down your game if you're near it in game. Like your frame rate will just drop to like nothing if you've got a real dense area.
Yeah, we should mention. So we didn't even mention at any of this that this game is early access.
Oh yeah.
So this game's early access right now, and that is my one like criticism of it, is that I really hope that a lot of optimization gets done. From what I've heard, it is mostly dependent on how much terraforming you've done. From what I've heard, that is what slows down your game the most, is doing a lot of digging or raising of ground or leveling of ground, anything that changes. And it makes sense. If you think about it, the game knows the entire shape of the world based on the seed, right? Literally 10 Unicode characters defines the entire scope of or shape of the entire world. And so the game can always generate the world around you based on those characters, except every little hole you've dug, every little thing that you've changed, the game has to remember that it's just different from the seed. And so makes sense to me. I don't know. I'm half talking out my ass here, but it makes sense to me based on that logic that terraforming would equal it taking longer to tell you what the world is shaped like, you know what I mean? Which means it might not even be as big of a deal if you are on a local world and it's not having to communicate with the server, you know? Because like the world database is held server side, so when it needs to load in a new area and the shape of it, it has to retrieve that from the server, right? That probably causes a frame hitch, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know about frame hitch, but it definitely causes lag if your server is shitty. I've had to unhost Nitrado and go somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't want to get too off topic or too nitty gritty, but I'm actually stuck on Nitrado. I downloaded my database file and my FWL, and I loaded them onto a local server, and it won't open them. And I tried to put it into my local files to just load up the game single player, and it will not load the world.
That's weird. I didn't have any issues at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is. So I was forced to buy another month. Since I'm only playing with Nicole, you know, we were like, well, we're both in the same house. I might as well just download the world from the server I rented and host it on a local PC, and then we'll be able to play better, you know. But something about our world, we made it so that it can't reinitialize. So I'm worried that if our Nitrado server ever has to restart, that it's just gonna fail and we're gonna lose our world.
Yeah. Okay, so what's a game that you've been playing that you've been wanting to talk about?
Oh, dude. All right. So Bravely Default 2 came out on Switch, and let me tell you, this game wants me to hate it so badly, like. Oh, God. So, as I mentioned about the first Bravely Default and about this one now, I'm not going to talk about spoilers here, all right? This is going to be spoiler-free. I'm not very far in the game, so I can't really spoil things. But it's still got that really great gameplay that the first one had, as far as, like, the job system's great and the battle system is really fun, you know? It's got that going for it. I really like that. But Oh man, so many things about it are bothering me. Mainly presentational issues.
The plasticky characters you were mentioning
Yeah,
before.
so I talked about that on the demo, and I really got to ream on it for a minute here. This game's fucking motion blur, dude.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, I think I can attribute most of my problems to the game, of the presentation of the game, as that it's on Unreal Engine. I feel like a lot of the issues are Unreal Engine based. The fact that it's got this like plug-in motion blur effect on everything, the bad loading times, the plasticky looking characters, I think that those are all Unreal kind of things. But man, the motion blur is the worst offender of everything. Because here's the deal. When you are playing Uncharted or Bloodborne or games like that that have motion blur, or Doom, like new Doom, the motion blur comes from when you're whipping the camera around and that kind of thing, right? But when you're just running forward, there's not too much to blur because there's not much motion happening at the center focal point of your screen, right? So it's not really getting blurred. Maybe the stuff on the sides are. That's fine. That's immersive. You're not really looking at that. It's fine. This is a JRPG. Bravely Default 2 is a game where you will have an overhead camera, right? You have an overhead, like, isometric view camera. Maybe it's not isometric if it's not at 45 degrees. I'm not sure about the specifics there. Do you know what I mean?
I haven't seen the motion blur itself, but I'm assuming, like, say you order this character in your party to attack, he runs up and attacks, but is he, like, blurry when he runs up?
Yeah, the whole, like, they don't even have to run up. They just kind of attack in place, you know? And their attacks are very quick animations. But yeah, they're just a big fucking blurry blob while they're doing their animations, and it looks terrible. But no, the worst part of it, like, all of that looks bad, yeah, but the worst part of it is when you're in a dungeon, right? Because when you're in a dungeon, you've got an overhead camera, and that overhead camera dollies with your party. So that means that you have this sweeping shot where every single time that you are running in a dungeon, whenever you are just moving, the whole dungeon is scrolling across your screen, so the whole fucking thing is blurry.
I think that is intentional. Because if you think about it, if it is intentional, I'm assuming the best of intentions here, because if you're in a dungeon, the idea is that you don't want to be in a comfortable space. You want to feel as if you're feeling a sense of distress. And if you're going to be running, then you're probably going to get a little bit of tunnel vision, if that makes sense.
We're not like sprinting for our lives. I just mean that the action...
Oh, you're just walking along.
Yeah, the action of just moving in the game blurs everything out. And it looks so bad that, like, I can't believe that it's in a big budget game, you know? Like, maybe it's not the biggest budget in the world, but, like, it's a Square Enix game, you know? I feel like this is the kind of, like, just super amateur kind of mistake of, like, oh, you got the motion blur module. I don't know how video games work, really, about how, like, to make them, you know? But what it looks like is that the motion blur is like a plug-in effect that automatically happens. And so they're just like, yeah, motion blur, that's what good-looking games have. Throw it in, you know? And then it just has this side effect of this is not the type of game that you wanted on because of the way that the camera moves just makes everything look like a blurry mess. But it does happen, like you mentioned, like the animations in battle. It happens on those also, and that looks bad. And, like, it's even... There is a part where, so every battle that starts, the camera kind of sweeps across your party to show everybody, like, ready to fight. But again, here's this camera dolly motion happening that with motion blur means that everything it's trying to show you is blurry. And, like, so there's even a part where they want to, like, they bring up this little tutorial, right? Where, like, when you do a certain thing to get into a battle, it gives you a bonus at the start of the battle, right? If you hit a guy in the back on the field, then you start the battle ahead, right? With an advantage. And it tells you that as it's sweeping past the party, it tells you on screen, your party's feeling brave or whatever, you know? And like, that's good. But it gives you the tutorial for this mechanic and shows you the screenshot of the text on screen saying your party's feeling brave or whatever, with the party behind it blurry. Like, there's this fucking screenshot that the game is using as a baked-in tutorial, and the screenshot is blurry because of the motion
blur. So they saw
blur.
this.
Yeah.
They
so
saw
it's
this
like,
in development.
oh, man, it's ridiculous. I know I've spent a lot of time on this one thing, but, like, God, the game just looks shitty to look at. And
well, the whole point of what we're doing is to boil it all the way down.
It's just driving me fucking nuts while I'm trying to play this game.
This is a Square Enix game too, right?
It is Square Enix, yeah.
Was it developed by Square Enix?
That's a really good question. I think it's made... No, it's
like
made by... I want to say the company is called
Ms. America?
Silicone Studio.
Oh, Hey, it kind of goes on brand with the plasticky kind of character.
That's true.
I guess.
I really hope I'm not wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure the developer is called Silicone Studios, and they made another game also at some point, which I will flash the text of on the screen now because I cannot remember it right now. But they made another game that's kind of well known.
Well, Silicone Studios, if you're listening, you fucked up.
Not to be confused with
not you.
Silicone Knights, who made Eternal Darkness. They know they fucked up when they made X-Men Destiny and 2 Human.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't you, then sorry. But I want to bring it back to a little bit to what you were saying earlier about how you think a lot of the issues with the game can kind of be chalked up to the fact that it's an Unreal game. And then I get to thinking about how I am playing an Unreal-based game, and I don't know what you're thinking of, but I think I might be able to relate in the Unreal-based game that I will talk about next week on next episode.
Okay.
But what I was going to ask was, I've heard that Unreal just it's kind of like the Source engine for games, where you kind of just know you're playing a Source game by the look and feel and how things move. But with Unreal, I feel like a lot of games kind of look the same, and I don't know why. And then I think about games that have an engine that's like you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
Like what we were talking about earlier, like with Valheim. That's a Unity-based game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And I played another Unity-based game recently called Phasmophobia, and they are two entirely different games in look and feel. It's pretty fascinating how like you can tell how something in Bravely Default is like, oh yeah, fuck, this is definitely an Unreal game. And I was like, if they didn't throw the Unity logo up on Valheim, I'd never know.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like, think of some of the Unity games you've played besides that. Like, Ori and the Blind Forest is a Unity game.
I wouldn't have thought that.
Outer Wilds is a Unity game.
Weird.
You know, so yeah, like that engine, from what I've seen, really takes... It doesn't seem to have those certain baked-in quirks that make you realize it. And also, for clarification, I should mention that anytime that I bitch about Unreal Engine, I'm talking about Unreal 3
Unreal
and 4.
Oh, I thought you meant just specifically 4.
3 and 4. Because Unreal 3 was like, you know, that was like the rampant engine during the like PS3 360 days.
Yeah.
Where you had tons of games like looked and felt kind of similar in that. Like Alice Madness Returns was like just a painfully unreal game, you know, and that kind of thing. Or Shadows of the Damned.
God damn, you know what I'm thinking or realizing right now? I'm thinking that I never really considered how older iterations of the Unreal Engine felt. And I think about it. So we got Unreal 4, that's like, you know, the engine that, well, it's probably kind of on its way out at this point, if I'm honest. But that's the one we all kind of know now as like, God, the basis of so many games. But like, you can kind of like tell, but if it's a little bit more cinematic, something you wouldn't interact with or have a lot of feeling with, like a JRPG, I can kind of see not knowing it's Unreal unless you know the visual cues. But then I think about like Unreal 3. I think Mortal Kombat 9 was on Unreal 3, and I can see movement-wise and character, just like the physics of it, I can kind of see how that would feel. Because the way I kind of tie it all together is, how does it feel in relation to Unreal Tournament. Dash is showing his copy of MK9 on PS3, and that is Unreal. Yep, that is an Unreal logo on the actual label. So thank you for confirming that.
Good call.
Yeah, it's weird to think of it because like you don't. I think game engines in the grand scheme of gaming is a relatively new thing. Like you used to have to just build up a game from scratch, from just base level code. And now you can buy the license to use an engine and then just kind of play with it how you want, and then that's your game. So it's kind of a new concept for me to think of, but it's like it's weird to think of Mortal Kombat in the same game design framework almost as Unreal Tournament 2013, or they just called it Unreal Tournament 3 or Black or something. I played that game for all of 10 minutes because while I love Unreal Tournament, it's nobody else played that online because no one bought it. But like I'm going back to like Unreal 1 here. And I'm just thinking there's a continuity in this engine. Like they all kind of feel the same. So I can kind of see what you mean, but I guess I just don't think about it because of the difference in genre.
Yeah, I never really played the old Unreal stuff. Really, all my experience with it, as far as I know, is mostly like 3 and 4. And it's always been the engine that just sticks out like a sore thumb to me as only being detrimental to the games that I played on it. You know, like all.
Wait. You just held up Mortal Kombat 9.
Mortal Kombat 9 is a great game.
Okay.
You know, I can't, I'm not saying
I couldn't let that go.
I'm not saying every game on it is bad. I'm just saying like the things that are very Unreal always bother me. Like the texture pop in is always one of the biggest things that people that's like something that I see most people recognize as like when you load in and everything's just like a smeary color of what it's supposed to be, and then like level by level the detail loads into the textures over the next several seconds. You know, it's like that.
It's kind of funny because what you're bringing up is like. It makes me wonder if they fully thought through the name of their engine. Like, you know, back in the 90s when they created Unreal, they were like the marketing was this game's Unreal. Like that's the idea.
It's a super 90s name.
And now it's like, yeah, no, it's literally Unreal. I don't believe you.
So that's that side of bitching about Bravely Default, but like the battle system is still really fun and like the dungeons are okay to explore, but man, the other thing that's just really bugging me about it so far is the writing is so like humdrum, blandy, boring. Like the first game I complained endlessly about because like the writing was so actively bad that it infected the gameplay, you know?
Oh no.
By like making you redo shit, you know? But this one is just kind of like really boring. The writing, like, man, yeah, like I leave town at one point and like there's this NPC there who starts up a conversation. There's like a pig monster, right? And he's like, here comes the cutscene, and the monster's like, oh, you don't hurt me. Or, no, first the party's like, it's a monster, get it, right? And he was like, oh no, don't get me. And they're like, oh, you can talk? And he's like, yeah, I can talk. And they're like, oh wow, I never seen a monster that could talk. And he's like, oh wow, you're humans, you didn't just fight me right away, you must be pretty good people. And they're like, oh, but you can talk, you know, and it's just like, oh god, it's so boring.
That was a really good reenactment, dude.
And like, and they, oh, can you go? I dropped my ring. Can you go find it for me? Oh, we got nothing better to do. Yeah, we'll go find your thing for you. Thank you. It was given to me by the man, and I don't know him anymore.
Okay. Can I just ask this? Do you hate JRPGs? Because it sounds like you hate JRPGs.
Okay, well, so. The thing is, at this point of this particular cutscene, I'm just fucking skipping the dialogue now, and I like never do that in games.
Oh yeah, good. Me either. Yeah.
But it's so bland and just like every game ever kind of dialogue that I'm just like skimming it and skipping along, and I just don't. It and then okay, so like another like writing example, right? And we'll get back into this particular cutscene in a second. But
hang on, wait, you started this off by saying you like this game, just to clarify, right?
I'm saying like the game wants me to hate it really bad. But the job system and the battle system is fun enough that I'm sticking with it still.
Got it.
So like I'm in a dungeon and there's a guy with a side quest, right? Or no. I'm in town and there's someone with a side quest. Okay, I go talk to the side quest person. They say, my husband went off to the dungeon and I would like you to take him his lunch because I forgot to give him his lunch today. And I'm like, okay, sure. So, we get the side quest. Going in the dungeon, I find the guy and I give it to him. But he says, I need a drink too. And I'm like, okay. So then you have to go back to the town, talk to the lady again. She says, I can't believe he also forgot his drink. What an idiot, right? Go take him his drink. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go take him his drink.
Oh, God damn it, it makes you go back.
Yep, and I talk to him again, and he says, but, I need some silverware to eat this food. Can you
already pissed.
Go to my...
I'm already pissed.
And, this is... actually, the side quest is to run back and forth, like 6 times. You have to run back and forth 3 times to do this side quest. And what's the benefit is that like every time all they say is, I forgot the thing, can you get it? Oh, he forgot the thing, you better take it to him. And there's nothing clever or funny or fun about the writing. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm thinking about Yakuza Like a Dragon, or I'm thinking about Mario RPG, games that like Yakuza is a game where so the latest Yakuza game is a JRPG. I don't know if you know this, but like the Yakuza series are like brawler beat 'em up style games.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a JRPG. Wait,
yeah.
that's Like a Dragon? Okay,
yes.
I didn't know what that was.
So the latest Yakuza game, they changed it to a JRPG. And
that's
the whole
awesome.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome, dude. And the main character, the whole thing is like the main character really likes Dragon Quest, so he like sees the whole world like Dragon Quest and he wants to be like a hero, And they even make mention about the turn-based battle system where someone says to Kasuga, the main character, at some point, they say like, why when you're fighting people, why do you just let them get hits in sometimes like it's a video game? Like they bring that up to him and stuff. And like, dude, the thing about Yakuza is that like, if you
that's just so self-aware, but like not obnoxiously so. I love it.
It's so good. And like the thing, what I keep thinking about that game while I'm playing Bravely Default, because in Yakuza, your quest might be just to run back and forth between a couple people a couple times, but the writing is so good and everything is so funny and heartfelt and excellent. Like you read every word of dialogue in the game because everything is so funny and fun.
Love that.
Yeah, so like you don't even really realize all that much that you're just running back and forth sometimes because like you're actually invested in what's happening in the side quest,
I don't want to. I know you're good about not giving spoilers. I'm not worried about spoilers, but I was gonna say I think Yakuza is gonna be the series that I replace the current game that I'm playing. That I'm gonna be talking about.
Is that Shenmue?
That's Shenmue. I'm playing Shenmue, but I didn't want to talk about it till next week. That's gonna be my game.
I've heard a lot of people say, like, I've never really played Shenmue, but I've heard people say that Yakuza is like Shenmue but good.
Well, first of all, how dare you? Shenmue is every time someone comes to my stream while I'm streaming it, and I don't even know why I'm streaming it at this point. No one likes it. But I have to have closure. That's kind of it, I guess. And I want everyone else who did stick around to watch it too. But everyone who asks me if Shenmue is a good game, I tell them I will sing its praise as I'm actively pissed off about it. And everyone who asks if it's good, I will say it's Shenmue. Buy it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely buy it. I'm not going to say anything else.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week then. But yeah, so anyway, the point is though, it's like in Yakuza, like there's one. I'm gonna talk about one particular side quest real quick, and I'm gonna spoil one side quest of the game. All right. So you're walking along and there is a crawfish sitting on you're walking over a bridge over like a I don't know, it's water, right? But like a dock, and there's a crawfish sitting in the middle of like the street that is the bridge, right? And Kasuga goes, "Oh, you shouldn't be here, you should be in the water." And so he takes this thing.
Is it alive?
Yeah. And he takes this thing in his fist and he doesn't just toss it into the water. He does this full fucking baseball fastball. Just
oh my God.
hucks this thing as hard as he can.
I immediately hate this character.
100 feet away into the river. Which is, first of all, is just hilarious. Like, the way to kick off this quest,
He really needed something to throw.
So you're already laughing just at, like, the way that this is presented. And then, but then this homeless guy runs over to you, and he's like, "No, oh, that was my beloved crawfish. I love her. Her name is something. I don't remember the name, but she's got a name. It's a her." He's talking about how he's been raising it and feeding it, and he's so attached to this thing. So now you gotta go find it. She's got a X-marked mark on her back or something. So then you gotta go and oh god, sorry dude, I'll go find.
Okay, yeah, I don't want any of the dialogue there because I'm sure it's actually really good.
It's all great, like the writing is so good, and then like okay, all right, I'll go find the crawfish. So then you gotta go over to the side of the dock, and you gotta look at all the crawfish until you find the one that's her, you know, and like again, gameplay wise, not that exciting, you know. You're walking along. The side quest initiates. Now run to the dock, pick up the things, and match the thing that they said. Like, there's nothing actually exciting happening, but it's...
but the good writing carries it.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
So then you find the crawfish, and you bring it back to the guy, and he's so happy that you brought it back, and then it's revealed that he wants to cook it. He's been raising this thing for all the time just so that he can cook it and eat it. And
what
he's
the
like,
fuck?
And then he starts like offering Kasuga, like I think he wants Kasuga to eat it with him or something. But then eventually it turns into like a fight with the guy, and you summon the crawfish army to fight him with.
Oh, this isn't like a dragon.
Yes.
I thought we were just talking about normal. God, so I was thinking about this in a Yakuza like you know, new age beat 'em up kind of context, not JRPG.
Yes.
So you were doing a gathering quest, and is it like I haven't seen the graphics. Is it like kind of like Game Boy overhead, like old school Zelda Pokemon?
No, it
style,
looks
or?
just like the other Yakuzas. It's just that when you get into a fight, it's like everybody's kind of standing around, you know, eyeing each other up, and you pick your things off of a menu, you know. Go do the brawler attack, so he runs up to him and he gets him, you know. But you gotta be, it's kind of like, it's got a little bit of like Chrono Trigger spacing to it, where like, if there's an enemy between you and the guy that you want to fight, and you click to attack them, you know, you start to run to them, but then the guy that's between will like intercept the attack, you know, so you got to be careful with your spacing and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it looks just like the other Yakuzas, but the battles are turn-based.
Kind of disappointing to me. I was kind of hoping they'd take it a little bit more extreme.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay, so a little about me. You know I'm nuts for like Pokemon and the Game Boy era. Honestly, I just love the Game Boy. It's like, I hate thinking about it, but it's probably my favorite console, like if you consider it a console. It's definitely my favorite handheld. But I think of the graphics, and then I think, man, I remember that one time I played Dragon Ball Z: The Legend of Goku, and it was just like watching the anime if it were Pokemon graphics, except Zelda graphics, because you know you actually had an active swipe attack and then a projectile attack. Terrible combat, but like. it's kind of like I played through the whole thing, even though it's really fucking hard to beat Frieza and shit, because just the simple gimmick of getting something that I love on the TV, like in a realistic, quote unquote, like at least a more realistic cartoony kind of thing, in a much more compact package where it's so important to write and develop the game well, because if you don't, no one's gonna buy it after spending 1 minute and like just never touching it again. But like if they had that in Yakuza style, I'd be super interested in playing it.
Gotcha. So anyway, like my point here, also, like I mentioned Mario RPG, right? To give an older example of this kind of thing. There's a part right in the very beginning of the game. There's this mechanic in the game called timed hits, where when you select an attack in Mario RPG, when Mario's doing the punching attack and you hit the button again at the right time, you get some extra damage, right? Same thing with defense. If you hit the button at the right time, you defend extra and that kind of thing. And it applies to all the characters. It's a huge mechanic of the game. It's called timed hits, right? At the very start of the game, you've got this moment where you're talking to Toad at your Mario, and you're talking to Toad at your house, and this Goomba comes in and he wants to fight, right? And Toad is like, oh no, oh no, the Goomba's attacking. And he turns to Mario, and now this part is verbatim. First he asks you if you know about timed hits, right? Time for the tutorial. And if you say yes, Toad turns back to the Goomba and says, "You better watch out. He knows about timed hits." And that is the funniest fucking thing to me. And like, it's just the writing is so good in that game with that kind of thing, where all that is a tutorial, right? Just your humdrum ass tutorial. Do you know about this thing? Yes or no? But they make it into like a funny, entertaining thing. So
come to think of it, I do remember Mario RPG. Well, I didn't play RPG, but I played, or maybe I did. I played one kind of RPG kind Mario game, and I do remember the writing being like uncharacteristically snarky for Mario.
Mario games are very like they have a lot of sarcastic humor in them, and generally really funny, great writing. Like all of the Mario games that have a lot of writing in them, being Paper Mario or the Mario and
Paper
Luigi
Mario
games. Which system was it for?
N64.
Yeah, that would be Paper Mario.
I loved it, actually. It was very good.
Yeah, those games have always had super good writing. You don't really expect it, because Mario on NES is just Save the Princess, you know? Mario on Wii is just Save the Princess. But when you play the ones that have writing in them, have dialogue in them, they go the extra mile with Mario dialogue. Like, those games always have really funny, really great writing. And that's my point. So I'm playing Bravely Default. These other games, they're able to take these really humdrum activities like a fetch quest or a tutorial, and they're funny and fun and engaging, and you love it, and the characters are great, and you just have a really great time with it just because the writing is so good. And then this is the exact opposite, where it's like, I don't even want to do the side quests because there is zero to get out of them as far as entertainment goes. You know, just like other games, they want you to go fetch the thing, they want you to go chop the grass down to find the thing, they want you to go kill 3 goblin archers, and what do you get out of it? Nothing. Oh, thanks. And that's
or gold.
Well, that's what I mean. They say, "Oh, thanks," and then you get like an item or something, and it's like, I don't care. I don't want to do these side quests because they're not fun. So
you gotta be gear crazed, like in a game like World of Warcraft, to tolerate doing that.
Yeah. There's also just like a bunch of really weirdly written dialogue. Just a lot, like there's one I guess this isn't gonna be that spoilery, but like technically maybe a tiny bit. There's one part where like you gotta go team up with like a prince. So one of the characters in your party is a princess, and then the others are not, you know, but she's teamed up with them, right? And there's a part where, like, you got to go team up with a prince, and during the first conversation that you have with him, Seth, the main character, pipes in to say, like, yeah, that's a good idea about something, right? Until then, the whole conversation has just been with the princess talking to the prince, but everyone else is there. Seth just says something super innocuous, like, yeah, great idea. And he's like, oh, how dare you speak up, you commoner, when the royals are talking, And everyone's like, whoa, dude, no, that's not okay. Or they don't say that. They say, whoa, dude, hey, no, we know him. He's cool, is like what they say. He's cool. Be fine. And then way later in the game, or later in after you do the dungeon, he does apologize to Seth, like, oh, I thought you were just some commoner. Huh? Sorry about that. But that's it. And it's like, wait a second. No, you've got a problem, dude. Don't apologize to Seth. You've got this class problem that maybe needs to be addressed a little bit.
I was a little bit classist, dude.
Yeah,
Jesus. It's what a filthy peasant. Oh no, dude. He's he's washed. He's fine, dude.
Right.
Oh.
It's just I don't know. It just seems like an opportunity for the game to have a little bit of a heartfelt moment where someone's like, yeah, that wasn't cool what you did, as opposed to just, oh, sorry, I was an asshole to you. You know what I mean? I don't know. It just, there's just kind of weird stuff like that where I'm just like, who is writing this game where the reason that wasn't the thing is just because it's the most bare bones, basic writing in the world, where it's just the guy comes with us for a minute. Okay, we did the thing and he said his thing and now we're on to the next thing. And
it makes me wonder if that's probably just the area that they chose to cut, because I've heard from a couple different devs, they all kind of say the same thing. It's honestly a miracle if a video game makes it to release at all. So you gotta wonder where they're cutting the game, what corners are they cutting in a game to meet both the deadlines that their bosses probably set for them and also what they have money to pay employees for.
For sure.
It's but Bravely Default, I wouldn't consider that. I don't really know how this rating system started, but I wouldn't consider it a AAA game, quote unquote. So it's probably not the main focus of Square Enix at the moment. So I wouldn't imagine it has all that much funding. When you told me the name of the studio that it wasn't a name I recognized. And I'm not an expert on game studios, but I've heard a few, and that one's not familiar.
I mean, it is the sequel, though, right? I don't know. I would imagine that they'd be trying to impress with it. But yeah, I know what you mean. Also, there's things where, you can tell that, the game is just put together in a way that the people making it didn't necessarily know while they were making it. As in, the writer, right? The writer doesn't exactly know how everything is going to be put together in the end, it seems. Because there's also this mechanic called a party chat, where as you're running around, it might just say, hey, there's a party chat, press start, right? And then that just brings up a little mini cutscene where the characters just have a little moment, right? It's just a tiny little conversation. And, as a writer, you don't really know when that's going to happen, when the player is going to engage in that. First of all, when you press the button, okay, I'm going to do it, the game freezes for 4 seconds before it actually brings it up, and just shit like that is just all over the game. Every time that you pause the game, it freezes for a moment, there's just frame hitches all over the place on top
That's
of,
obnoxious.
Oh, God! So, you can only wonder how much of that is because of, maybe if there was less motion blur on everything, the Switch could run it properly. Anyway,
especially the Switch.
Anyway, sometimes those little conversations don't match up to what's happening, as in I mentioned the thing where the prince apologizes to Seth, right? But then there's a party chat later where they're kind of speaking as if that didn't happen. And so it just kind of throws you off where it's
is it one of those multiple pathway games that you can't tell what like you kind of have to make the game 12 different times dialogue wise, and then they just kind of have to choose which pieces get into what scenes, I guess.
There's no choices that you make ever, not even like little fake choices of just like saying yeah, cool.
Wow,
or
so it's
maybe.
just really linear then.
Yeah, super linear, and that I'm fine with. I'm fine with a JRPG that's super linear. It's like my favorite genre. One last thing I'll say about it is that, like, you asked me, I'm glad I remembered this. You asked me, like, it sounds like I hate JRPGs when I'm describing the writing. The thing about a lot of it for me, honestly, is it's time to go, like, way back into hipster territory, so fair warning. I think that voice acting, in general, I'm not saying always, but in general, I think voice acting is unimmersive. Because it's never perfect. When you just imagine the dialogue in your head like you're reading a book, you make up all the characters' voices, you do the inflections yourself, you fill in all the gaps imaginatively. And in like an old JRPG, where the characters are just little little pixelated sprites on tiles.
Where you're still reading the game. Yeah.
Where they're all it's kind of abstract, right? Where everything is very little detailed. The characters move on block tiles and stuff, and text boxes come up. You fill in a lot of the blanks in your head, and you kind of make things make more sense. But when instead the cutscene is presented to you as, here's all the characters, they're fully animated, fully modeled, they can walk, they can do animations, they're voice acted, now all of the little problems start to come out where
they don't leave any for the imagination, so you pick it apart immediately.
Yeah, it's like that line was delivered weirdly, or when this action happened, everybody else was just standing around and didn't react to it at all, and that looks weird. You know what I mean? You start to, it makes the cutscene kind of look worse, and well, what it ends up doing is it makes bad writing stand out more, really.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
When the writing is bad and boring, you're no longer filling the blanks in your head like you do with an old 16-bit game, because you're being shown exactly what's happening, and exactly what's happening is boring, you know?
I have a counterpoint, if you'll allow me.
Sure.
The counterpoint being, back then, yes, there is less to go off of visually in the game, but that's not the game isn't 100% of what one person consumes. That's back when Nintendo, game studios like Konami, they were hiring like these master, just mural painters, just insanely talented painting artists and all this shit. And then they also put a lot of work into their game manuals at the time, as well as inserts if it had inserts. So you've got a good fair bit to see, like if you look at, for instance, Final Fantasy V, and you look at the character, I want to say her name is Ferris. She is assumedly a he in the beginning of the game. And sorry, this is pretty early on if I'm spoiling this old-ass game for anyone. But you find out that this pirate is actually a princess. She is the daughter of a king of one of the kingdoms you are going to. But she's like all tomboyish, but still has like an air of femininity that you can just kind of tell. And when I say those words, you're probably not at all thinking about what Ferris actually looks like, which is like, I can't remember the name of the artist for the original, like the one who does all those like illustrated kind of form paintings for Final Fantasy. You know how they have like a unique element behind everyone, like there's the meteor behind Final Fantasy 7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's like the mech suits for Final Fantasy 6. It's that artist, and like I mean, like if you just look up like the character designs, they don't look anything like that. If you look at here's Final Fantasy 2 on the Wonder Swan right now. Well, the camera's not going to see it too well, but that's a white box. Final Fantasy 2 for the Wonder Swan color. Hopefully you'll be able to see the art, because the artist is known for doing like really white, kind of like wispy kind of art. Yeah, you're probably not going to see it too much at all.
Here.
Oh, well, there we go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you can kind of see that, it's not at all what you think she looks like. And well, this is Final Fantasy 2, not Final Fantasy 5, so different character. But yeah, she has this really. If you were to imagine what, oh yeah, there you go, that Chrono Cross, right?
It's Final Fantasy 2.
Final Fantasy 2. Oh, I don't recognize the. Oh, okay, that's the different art. Why did you get the cool art and the Wonder Swan just gets a white box?
This is Famicom, dude. Japanese arts are always the coolest.
Well, this is the Japanese art. The Famicom, the Wonder Swan was only in Japan.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah, I'm special now because I have exclusive Japanese retro thing. Believe what I say about video games that no one plays anymore.
So get to your point about what that art does for you.
Yeah, so the art makes it like it leaves a little bit less to the imagination when you kind of get a picture of like, whoa, that's what the character looks like, and then you kind of see the character art, and then like the writing will stand out because you'll know that a character in your main party has a certain kind of personality. We'll say a certain kind of thing. But every like enemy, it's like just generic foot soldier 1, just they'll say, "Hey, you can't be here. Get him." Like it'll have just some stupid thing like that. That to me is less immersive than the real thing, where I'm used to watching movies, and video games like that are becoming more and more like movies. I can excuse bad acting. I can't excuse bad writing, to your point.
Yeah.
So like, yeah.
So in the manuals, yeah, they always have like these illustrations of the characters and stuff, and I think that helps a lot, like if you do pay attention to it, because then I like the 16-bit cutscenes because you're able to apply the drawing that you've seen, and then you look at this like abstract character tiles kind of cutscene going on, and you sort of apply the drawing to that in your imagination, you know?
Yes.
Where like with the guard kind of thing, right? It's just going to be the two characters on their blocks next to each other, right? And in your head, you're kind of imagining what's actually happening. The guard might put his hand up, right? Or something like that. You know, stop, right? And like have an animation to it. Or well, that's how you're imagining it, right? Something like that. But in like an actual game, a lot of the time you've got these fully animated characters that are able to do that, but instead it's like the character runs up and then stops and stands still, and then the guy pops up his text box, stop, you know, and now it looks weird. Now you're like, hang on, that's not how this would play out. What's going on here?
I know exactly what you mean. Like there's a retro styled horror game called Faith that does an insanely good job at exactly that. It's not even polygons. It's just like it's meant to be styled after like a Commodore 64 game almost. But like the small little movements of this basically a stick figure on the screen can be directed and animated in a way that your brain imagines that as if you were seeing it in like a person-to-person real-life interaction. It's a pretty cool effect because you don't get that with books and you don't get that with modern games unless they're like an indie, like old school thing like that.
Yeah. So yeah, to wrap it up, with Bravely Default 2. Oh, so those are all the things about, like, the writing that are just bugging me. There's also just little things. Like, it gets really nitpicky, but, like, just the way it's written. There's this part where this guy mentions to the princess, like, that there's some commoner that mentions to the princess that he's seen her before. We actually met before a few years ago, he said, like, I was a castle guard, and we were doing our sword practicing one day, you know, and so I saw you when you came to the castle one day, and she's like, yeah, okay, and then he says, if I recall correctly, and then after saying that, he goes on to tell this extremely detailed story about about what she did when she was at the castle, that he very, very clearly made an impact on him, and he remembers very clearly. So just this, like, if I recall correctly, and it's just like, I don't know, man. It's like the writing just...
How would you remember that?
Well, it's... No, the story that he tells is, like, kind of interesting. And, like, oh, yeah,
okay.
You would totally remember that. I'm sure everyone would totally remember that, you know? And so just the fact, though, that he starts out by saying, like, this line that, like, implies that he's just kind of barely remembering it. And
like... abnormally hostile and sarcastic.
Yeah, I don't know. It just stuff like that stands out to me, where it's like it's really like just sloppy, fast writing that was never edited. It seems like, you know what I mean. But yeah, so I'm just...
Oh, there's also the dimension that you have to think about, which is how well it's translated too.
So, so I'm getting past a lot of my issues with, like, the delivery of the voice acting and the actual writing. I switched the language to Japanese audio, and
there you go.
It's helping a lot, dude.
It doesn't make you a weeb. I don't care what anyone says. There's so much, like, this goes back to, like, me not wanting to show my family that I liked anime, because, like, they wouldn't get it because they don't understand the differences in, like, tonal inflection and all that shit. And it's like, even when you translate it to English, it's like you realize later on, oh, this is just so much better in the language it was meant to be spoken. It's nowhere near as awkward.
Yeah. Right. A lot of the time when you're watching something that was translated from Japanese, a lot of the time you can kind of tell how much interpretation was done based on, like, the way that they structure things and, like, just the general demeanor. Like, you know, I can't get super into it because I don't really know for sure, but I feel like a lot of the time when things are very directly translated from Japanese, they tend to be very, very, like, direct statements, you know? While, you know, like, statement after another, while when it gets really interpreted... and kind of rewritten, then the characters kind of
I think there's a lot of context lost. I think. Well, maybe not context. Well, it's context in, like, you know, of the circumstance and tone. I think there's less being described in the actual language, but I don't know Japanese either. But that's what I get. Yeah.
So the other reason that it's really nice to turn it to Japanese is because this is also one of those games where the characters shout a lot during the battles, and they, you know, like, when you strike an enemy's weak point, each character seems to have, like, 2 different things that they say, and because of this game's battle system, there are times where you'll do, like, 4 consecutive attacks to a character's weak point in a row, and every single one of those attacks, right in a row, the character will shout out their weak point quip, you know what I mean? And so you just end up with the, oh, right in the soft bits. Oh, he didn't like that one. Oh, he didn't like that one. Oh, right in the soft bits. You know, and it's just like, oh my God. You know, but when you turn it to Japanese, even when, like, or I should just say, when you turn it to a language that you don't understand, even if things are repeated, you don't get, it's not as annoying, you know? Because, it's kind of hard to describe. It's a little abstract. It's like when...
It's just one of the million things that is, like, just barely taking you out of the experience.
Yeah, and like, the issue that I take with it, besides just kind of being annoying and that I'm hearing it over and over again, is that a person doesn't behave that way, you know?
Yeah.
And you really only start to get that when you hear it in your own language, and you go, oh, he's yelling that again, or that's what he's thinking again. You know, it starts to take you out of it. But when it's just when it's another language, and so you don't actually know what he's saying, then you don't have that particular problem of, like, he's just shouting the same sentiment over and over again. You know what I mean? Instead, it's just like, that's the sentence that he says. Okay, cool. I'm fine with that. It sounded cool because it's in Japanese, and everything in that language sounds cool. But anyway, point is, that's helping me a lot. The job system is extremely fun. And the other, like, really positive thing to say about it is that I've been playing it on hard mode, and I think that it is really well balanced. Like, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Valheim, I mentioned that, like, one thing that really is important for me in a game is when you have to engage in the mechanics in order to succeed, right? There are a lot of RPGs, a lot of JRPGs, where you spend the better half of the game just mashing A to get through battles, just attack, 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 attack. It doesn't matter, right? And
that's why I don't like them mostly.
Yeah. Even like some it's like that's my biggest complaint about Final Fantasy VII, right? Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games of all time. I have huge nostalgia for it. It's a wonderful game. However, it is too damn easy, and you can just mash attack through way too much of the game, right? Bravely Default,
probably, yeah.
So Bravely Default 2, I'm playing it on hard, and like at first, since it has a job system, there's this job that everybody starts with called the freelancer that doesn't really specialize in anything, so they don't really have any great abilities, you know? Or they don't have like much chance to exploit weak points of bosses and that kind of thing, or they don't have they're missing certain key components to a working party.
Is it kind of like that base class where it's like where you start out a JRPG and you kind of just choose your path based on what kind of armor you like and what kind of weapons you do, and then you just that way.
It's like the Squire in Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yep.
It's like the Onion Knight in Final Fantasy 3. But yeah, it doesn't really have any like certain specific components that you need to a party, like a healer, you know? But they do, if you master that class, you get an ability that increases everybody's JP. Like, you get a passive ability that makes you get more JP. So...
What's JP?
Job points. That's what levels up your job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, the way that I play games, I'm like, well, everybody's a freelancer until they have it mastered then. However... like, I got to one of the first bosses, and I actually couldn't beat it with everybody as a freelancer. I had to change the party to, you know, a guy that wears armor, a black mage, a white mage, and, you know, a wild card.
Boring.
I had to change my party to a that's a working party, Nox. That's like...
Yeah, but that's what... It's always that. That formula of a working party
those are the
is
first,
every JRPG.
Those are the first jobs you get. I only had those to choose from at this point because this was very early in the game.
Okay, I'll forgive that. Then.
Okay. The jobs get real cool real quickly. There's a lot of like cool jobs. Anyway, so my point though is that it's difficult to play as all freelancers because they don't have all these abilities, right? It does have the secondary thing like Final Fantasy V has, right? Where it's like, here's my freelancer that also has white magic, and here's my freelancer that also has black magic, right? But I couldn't give them the stats and equipment in order for it to be good enough, right? So on this early boss, I had to actually go change my characters to the proper jobs so that they could actually heal with some strength and do magic with some strength to beat it. And I was like, yes, this game is not letting me just steamroll it, tanking and just like not putting all that thought into my strategy because I'm too busy min-maxing. Instead, I had to strategize, and I give big points to the game for that.
Okay, I've heard that before, min-maxing. What does that exactly mean?
Min-maxing in general is like you know what you want specifically, and so you ignore everything else, you minimize everything else in order to maximize that. As in, like, you know, like if there's an RPG where you can choose which stat points you put in, you know, you're going to put every single point into strength, right? Unless maybe there's a point where you literally require to have one more point of vitality. So you have to put the one in there. But you've got it memorized, or you looked it up on the wiki that you need to have that. And so you put only the minimum required in so you can maximize everything else, right? That's what it is.
And And so the reason I find that boring is because I'm the type of person that wants to put all the points in like like fuck, what was the word? Personality, essentially.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And like courageousness. I don't know, whatever
Guile,
what the game would call it.
charisma.
Yeah. Charisma, that's the word. I was wanting just full charisma and like maybe 1 point of stamina.
Mm-hmm.
And just to run away when shit doesn't when you can't talk your way out of a situation. That's the kind of game I like, because I like to see how games do things that they haven't done before, or rather make a new immersive way, like a new way of making a game to make it more immersive.
Yeah. So the reason I brought it up with Bravely Default was that, like, basically I would, like, loosely define what I was doing with the freelancers as min-maxing, where I was ignoring all of the jobs because I just wanted this one ability on everybody, because it's a JP up. If I don't get that ability as soon as possible, then every battle I'm wasting JP until I get it. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Every battle that doesn't give me JP to freelancer to get me towards that JP up ability, every battle, that's a waste of JP. You know what I mean? That's the mentality that gets you min-maxing, right? So that's why I say everybody was a freelancer until they had that ability. But I'm just giving the game big points in that I couldn't do that. I had to strategize for the boss. And so I like that a lot.
I just don't even think about that stuff when I play those games. I just like, well, I'm more focused on the story, and then like everything else mechanically wise is a hindrance when it comes to JRPGs. So if I'm not able to get through it quick, I don't like it. And if it's a complex puzzle, I'm not going to have the patience to solve it. Not in a game that takes 80 hours to beat without doing side quests.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I want, like, I don't know, maybe I'm asking too much, but I want the story to be good, and I want the gameplay to be good. And to me, good gameplay is strategizing and, you know, having to, like, tactically plan out your turns and that kind of stuff, because if you do things wrong, then you die, and you gotta start back from the save point.
And that's what I do a lot of when I play the games, which is why I don't like them.
So anyway, there you go. That's what I've been that's what I've been
Bravely
playing
Default
recently. I've been playing Valheim and Bravely Default 2. And we're at the 2-hour mark just about, or almost. Not quite yet. Is there anything else so you're talking about your other game next week. Do you have anything else that you're dying to talk about? Because I do have a game review to do.
When it comes to game reviews, I don't get through games all very fast, and the games that I play a lot are games that don't have an end. So, well, I mean, you can still review those, obviously, but
yeah.
I wouldn't call myself an expert on some of them. I'm just stoked to talk about games in general, so... Mm-hmm. I'm charged for next episode, so I'm good. I'm good here.
All right. Yeah. Right. I would say, as far as that kind of thing goes, like, to me, it's at the point where, like, you don't have to beat a game to be able to say whether you'd recommend it to someone, you know?
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
But yeah,
you do need to play a little bit of it, though.
Oh yeah. But there are definitely times where you wish. You might wish you had that information after you already pulled the trigger on a review, right? Like I'm saying, you know, tons of people, just because it's on topic still, you'll hear lots of people say, Bravely Default 1 on 3DS, that was a great game. Didn't finish it, though. But anybody that you talk to that did finish it, it's going to be a different story.
That exists for me for... a couple games, actually. And yeah, they all seem to be like that. They're like, oh, well, what did you think of this? And I was like, what? And they're like, you didn't do this? I was like, no, I just did this and had a lot of fun and loved the game.
Yeah. I can't exactly think of an example, though, of the opposite, where there's a game that, like, I wasn't really liking, and then it did something huge to redeem itself.
Oh, hang on. I think, because it's hard to get through a game you don't like.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, actually, that's pretty hard to think of too. I thought I had a game, but then I realized it didn't redeem itself at all. It was a game that was like, it was more like I loved getting through it, but I hated actively doing it, and it felt like it was building until the end, and then the end was just a huge letdown.
Oh yeah,
and I was pissed because I did all that for nothing. No, I don't have a game that just redeemed itself at the end. This one just made it worse.
yeah. It's
Should I mention the name?
Sure.
Last of Us.
Oh,
I hate Last of Us.
the first Last of Us game.
The first Last of Us. Yeah,
I loved the ending of that game.
I think all the money that is going into The Last of Us should be instead pumped into Uncharted. But that's just me. I know that's a really unpopular hot take there.
Well, I mean, I'm not like super attached to either of those series at some point. You know, maybe what I think is Naughty Dog should make a new Jak and Daxter game, maybe. Bring Jak and Daxter back, baby.
I have people who say that to me too. Like one of my friends, he's been begging me to play Jak and Daxter live on stream for a long time, and I need to because he's a super supportive guy. But anyway, I look at Jak and Daxter and I go, and rather just play Ratchet and Clank, and then I'll play Uncharted because Uncharted is just so fucking fantastic. And Jak and Daxter nothing about it stood out to me. It was kind of like Sly Cooper. It was like the dying age of the game mascot when we were trying to have a mascot, but then we realized, no one cares for that shit anymore. That's what that is to me. And I only say Jak and Daxter, Sly, God damn it, Ratchet and Clank, because I played a couple of them, and mechanically they're very fun and very good if you like platformers. But yeah, I'd rather just see Uncharted.
Yeah. So I never played Jak and Daxter. I was just kind of saying that to be a dickhead. It's funny that you bring up Ratchet and Clank, though, because I do remember those games having a bit of a rivalry, you know, Jak and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank. I think only Jak
and Daxter was made by that's Naughty Dog. Yeah, yep. So Two Big. Okay, yeah, you're right. Because Two Big Heads. That's Lionhead Studio, right? That's the one who made
Ratchet,
Spyro. Yeah, Ratchet and Clank and Spyro, same company.
Let me think for a second.
Because they
yes,
they were
Insomniac is the name.
Insomniac,
yep.
That's what it was. Yes, Insomniac. They are an insanely good studio, but they stopped making Spyro games because they got bought out. Well, the studio got bought out. Like the IP got bought from them, I think, when they merged with some big company. I want to say it might have been Universal. I can't remember. This is not as good to recall, but anyway, they that's two big studios. That's Crash Bandicoot versus the Spyro, and I'm a Crash Bandicoot fan through and through.
Yeah,
but I loved Spyro a lot. Like the first one, and honestly, I don't like the remake. Everyone loves the remake on PS4. I don't like it at all.
Of Ratchet and Clank?
I like the
or of
of Spyro.
I'm sorry, Spyro. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the added content. Like you to what you were saying earlier, you were like, I like that Final Fantasy makes me do more of the imagination, kind of just filling in the blanks there. Where this adds to another game's blanks. You know, it adds cutscenes that would have otherwise been very boring and repetitive in the first game. But there's something about the first game that just like the original games just look so much better to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is interesting, yeah, the point about Spyro versus Crash. I think a lot of people, or Insomniac versus all of those, because, yeah, Spyro and Crash were like two of the major franchises on PS1, and then when they went to PS2, both companies made a new thing, right? Insomniac made Ratchet and Clank, Naughty Dog made Jak and Daxter. And then on PS3 is where it got kind of weird, because then Naughty Dog moved on again. They left Jak and Daxter behind and made Uncharted, while Insomniac, at first they started just making more Ratchet games, but then they made Infamous. Yeah. So, no. Infamous was Sucker Punch.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not.
What am I thinking?
I do want to correct myself earlier when I said Lionhead. I know you already corrected me, but Lionhead, I was thinking Lionhead because of Fable.
Yeah. Which is funny because when you were talking about a game that kept building up to something and then it was hugely disappointing at the end, that was Fable 2 for me.
I was gonna shit. Never mind. I was gonna say the first one.
I don't think I even beat the first one, but I do remember hearing that people were pretty unsatisfied with that game in general. I remember Fable 1 being hugely hyped up, and then when it came out, everyone acted like they didn't like it. But
I remember it the opposite
Yeah?
because everyone I knew fucking loved Fable, including me. The very first Fable, very good. Ending, not so much, but they made a DLC when that was not really a thing, and released Fable: The Lost Chapters, lost quote unquote. So they added content to the game. They added a whole new northern content, and like there was this cool ice quest, and they added some more stuff. So you actually. The reason the end of the game kind of sucks is because at the end of the game is when you get the ultimate weapon, and that's when the game no longer has replay value.
Oh, it's
okay.
like in Mario 64 when you get all 120 stars and Yoshi gives you 99 lives as a reward, and you're like, what the fuck am I going to do with these 99 lives, Yoshi? I already have all the stars.
And it makes you feel so bad about getting it, too, because in order to get it, you have to, like, join up with Vader, so to speak. I don't want to spoil the story too much, but like you have to take the evil side, and then it makes you feel like shit because it's like, well, what am I going to do with this fucking sword, dude? I just like, I don't want to spoil it, but I just did insert traumatic experience here that is your entire reason for existing as a protagonist. To get something that I now no longer can use.
So, yeah. To clarify what I meant about the release of Fable 1 is what I remember was, like, critically, I feel like everyone was, watching, like, G4 TV and stuff. It was, oh, what a disappointment Fable was. But the people I knew who were playing it really liked it. I didn't have an Xbox though, so I was not playing.
Fable 2, I heard was a huge letdown, and then when I heard about Fable 3, I heard a lot more people liked it, but most of the franchise fans were gone at that point because all the games were supposedly so different from each other. Like they still haven't made a Fable like Fable 1. Like I heard there was a lot of like town building and a little bit more politics around in Fable 2 and 3. I haven't played 2 or 3. And I haven't seen a whole lot of it. I'm just going off what I said.
Yeah.
And I largely skipped the Xbox 360 timeline, but Fable 1 was a fantastic ride to the top.
Okay, so next week you can talk about Shenmue and remind me to bitch at you about how terrible Fable 2 is, because
okay.
Let me just say, there was one earlier thing you brought up that like you don't finish a lot of games, or like it's hard to say that you have.
Yeah.
It's hard to stick with a game if you're not liking it, is what you said. And yeah, someone actually asked me earlier today, what's the worst game you've ever played? And, or like, what do you think is the worst game ever? Or that kind of thing, And that's a really hard question to answer, because if I'm not liking a game to the point where
you just don't fucking touch it.
To the point where like it's a contender for the worst game ever, I'm just not gonna play it enough to really know very much about it or say definitively that it's the worst, because I'm done with it, But then I did go, well, let's talk about Fable 2 for a few minutes, because I think that might be the worst game I've ever beaten.
The worst game you've ever beaten, then. Okay, so this one redeemed itself at the end. Is that what you said?
No! Oh,
it didn't at all.
God,
okay,
no.
God, no.
I'll tell you about it some other time.
Just to add one more thing to this little bonus ending segment for those who are still sticking around. The worst game you've ever played. So one of the things that I like to do when I stream is play games that I purposely think would be bad, because I think my suffering can make for somewhat decent entertainment value. I'll get a wild hair up my ass one day, and I'll just figure, why don't I just play this Barbie game I got for $2 at the Goodwill? And now I've discovered that I'm on a hunt for good Barbie games.
Have you played Barbie Explorer for PS1?
Not yet, but I own it. I haven't tried it yet. I'm waiting to.
That one is legitimately okay.
Really good. So I bought 2 different ones so far. On PS2, I bought Barbie as the Island Princess, and it is a mini game where there is not a lot of mini games, and the mini games that are there are just horse shit. Like they're just terrible. I get that it's a kid's game, right? They're supposed to be easy, but the way it feels like there's about a month's worth of input lag, and the visual cues of it are not really on track to the way of how events are kind of playing out. The tutorials are fine. It tells you how to play the minigame, but like actually doing it is another thing. Like it doesn't feel like a smooth playing game.
Yeah.
And then there's Barbie as Barbie Horse Rescue or Barbie Horse Rescue Adventure or something like that. That's the one I started playing with my friend Nikki on stream, where you just kind of catch as many it's Wild Horse Rescue, and it's a gathering game for horses, except it's not open world, which is kind of what makes gathering games interesting. It's on track, and you ride through it like a Crash Bandicoot game, but shitty. Like the segments of Crash Bandicoot where you're riding the tiger down like the Great Wall of China or something. Yeah, imagine that, except with no action. It's slow, it's laggy, and the geometry of the environment makes it so you can't even run on a straight line in a flat plane at times.
Yeah, it's funny sometimes you play a game like that, and it's like it's only difficult because of how shitty it controls.
Yeah.
And like just the game is like falling apart at the seams, and it makes it very difficult to technically to play it, but then like, some games they just leave it that way. And so it's like, what's the hardest game you've ever played? Is generally not a game that has a legitimate challenge in it. It's probably something that was just fucking broken,
Well, then you think of like Wings of V.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's a very, very difficult game, but it's so solid, that like once you learn it, you can be good at it. But when a game is just so broken, it's difficult to even get used to it and get good at it, because there's nothing to get good at. It's just falling apart. And then maybe they'll course correct and we'll just make you have a shitload of health or something, right? We'll make it really hard to lose. So then you just end up with this frustrating game where you're constantly getting this feedback loop of you're doing poorly because you're running into everything and losing health all the time, but you're not losing. So you just kind of keep going, but the whole thing is frustrating. I don't like that kind of thing. That can go that mentality though can seep into games that are good but just need to be a little harder. Sometimes you end up with that experience with a good game just because it's not hard enough. Perfect example.
I've never encountered that, actually. I've been perfectly fine to be bored and never put a game back on again.
This goes way back into my talk earlier about how like I want games to make me engage with the mechanics and learn them.
Yeah.
So Batman Arkham Asylum was a game that I was playing for a bit, and I didn't really get how you were supposed to do the combat at first. I was mashing the attack button the whole time, And when you sit there and mash the attack button and then, someone's attacking me, so I start mashing the counter button, when you play it that way, you never get a combo, which, like, reduces the resources you get or something. You never get a combo. You get hit a lot and that kind of thing. But, like, the game isn't hard enough for you to lose if you're doing that. So instead, you're still progressing. You're still winning. The game is telling you that you're doing good enough, but, like, it's constantly just kind of slightly frustrating feeling because you're getting hit a lot. You're being told that you're not doing great, but you don't really know what's wrong, And if the game would just fucking kill me when I'm not playing it right so that I can learn right away, I'm not doing something right, I better fix it, then it would be fine. But instead, the game lets you drag along not playing it right. You know what I mean? But instead,
I love that you're begging for the game to kill you. It's like I don't know many people who do that. It's like this game needs to be harder. I don't know how many people who go through that thought process.
it's just if a game doesn't make you use all the mechanics, you end up with normally a more boring experience, but also it can be frustrating because you're missing out on things that you don't know that you're missing out on, and
yeah.
Or like
I agree.
Or like with Batman, the thing is like it's just like the combat just generally felt shitty, but I was still winning, so I just thought it was kind of shitty, you know? But then it wasn't until later I realized, oh, you don't mash the buttons. If you time all of your attacks, then you get a combo going, then things are smooth, then the combat feels good, you know? So just, like, make me do that right away instead of, like, just letting me think that the game kind of sucks.
Counterpoint, tutorials are boring.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying kill me. I'm not saying...
Oh, okay, yeah. You want to be forced to find it out.
Don't call me. Don't have Morgan Freeman call me and Batman. Here's how you need to punch dudes. That would be stupid.
Oh
right?
God, yeah. There's so many games that do that though.
So instead, just punish incorrect play. Don't like like they always say, show me, don't tell me.
I agree. I could see that. Yeah. I never even really thought about it that way. Like I'm thinking about the times I go through that thinking process, and it's just like, yeah. It's God of War. Just hit X a whole bunch, and we'll be fine.
No, oh God, I'm trying to like find a spot to end the stream or the show, but you just ripped on God of War, and I don't know if I can stand for it. You're talking about PS2 God of War?
I am talking about all of the God of Wars that I've played, which is 2, 3, and 1.
Okay.
Not in that order. I played them all in order.
Oh, okay.
I haven't played 4 yet.
All right. Yeah, I've only played the I've played the first 5, which is, the 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then the 2 handheld ones.
Let me preface it though. I love God of War.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. I take umbrage with you just mash. It's you don't just mash to get through God of War. They have very interesting enemy variety that forces you to.
There's puzzles.
There's puzzles.
There's good puzzles.
There's platforming.
There is good good platforming later on.
Mm-hmm.
But in the beginning, I mean, you kind of have to think about it in context. But we can talk about God of War next time too, if you'd like.
We could. It's also a very video gamey series in that, like, it's one of those things where you identify where you're supposed to go, so you start looking in all the nooks and crannies, and they always have little bonuses for you, you know? Like, there's lots of just little secrets to find all over the place, and I really like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of secret finding for sure.
But my whole thing is I won't stand for people just saying that, oh, you just mash buttons through the whole game. Because nah. There's the guys you gotta block, there's the guys you gotta dodge, there's the guys you gotta grapple, and then they give you like interesting combinations of them at the same time, so you gotta kind of figure your strategy out each different fight.
We'll talk about it next time.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I think that's wrapping up the show for today. If you guys have a topic that you want us to talk about, just put it in the comments. Tell us about it. Or correct us on shit that we got wrong also. And
you can actually find us on more places than have a comment section too now. You'll have the video portion here on YouTube, and if you'd like, we are now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and just a direct RSS feed if you like that too.
That's right. And you can check us out on Twitch if you ever want to see it live and yell stuff at us while we're talking. We're reading chat. We're not necessarily talking to chat, but we're reading it. So we go back and forth hosting it. Check out our weekly or our daily shows that we do also. I'm DashRetro. He's InvictvsNox on Twitch. And yeah, there you go.
There you go.
See you guys next time.
Later, guys.